Well, I want to welcome all of the people who joined us remotely and virtually for this meeting, this July meeting of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. We're happy to have with us two people for tonight. First, our new appointee appointed by the public advocate, Mr. Jamani Williams, and that's Esmeralda Simmons, and we'll hear from her later. But as we get the meeting started, we're going to ask the public advocate if he would bring us some remarks and help us to welcome Esmeralda Simmons to the board. Public advocate Jamani Williams, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Davey. Thank you, everyone, actually. And I know, like my office, CCRB is a watchdog. It's supposed to hold people accountable, hold systems accountable. I know when CCRB gained greater independence under the Jenkins administration, there was a lot of backlash and apocalyptic portrayal of what would happen. Kind of the same thing happens every time there's any movement toward more accountability, transparency when it comes to PD. Of course, none of that happened. It never usually does. We're at a time again when police accountability and transparency are at the forefront of not just a dialogue here in New York City, but nationally. And I know CCRB plays a critical role of that. I'm a proud supporter of the work you're doing. I'm going to continue to be a partner from both the outside as an elected official, an advocate, a legislator, and through appointing a new member of the board today. And I want to just encourage everyone here as we're going through what we're going through to just remain steady. And we can push forward a kind of new reimagining of what public safety is, what law enforcement's role is, and how everyone needs to be held accountable and be transparent the executing duties on behalf of all the residents. So I am very proud to introduce the first ever appointee by the Public Advocate's Office to the CCRB, Ms. Esmeralda Simmons. She has an awesome reputation, not just in Brooklyn, New York City, and all over with all things social justice. Esmeralda Simmons is a prominent civil rights and human rights attorney who focuses on protecting the rights of people of African descent and all folks who are disenfranchised. I'm going to take a second to read her lengthy bio, but I think it's all well earned and deserved, so if you could give me a second. She is the founding executive director of the Center for Law and Social Justice, which opened its doors in 1986. The center is a community-based legal advocacy and research institution based in Crown Heights and Medgar Evers College, the City University of New York, CUNY. As a director of the center, Ms. Simmons oversaw racial justice public policy campaign litigation on behalf of community organizations. She's a highly respected attorney. Ms. Simmons specializes in racial justice issues such as voting rights, educational inequity, cultural rights, and human rights violations in the U.S. She has had a robust career as the first Deputy Commissioner for Human Rights for New York State, New York State Assistant Attorney General, a New York City Assistant Corporation Counsel, and has also served as a law clerk to a federal judge. She's also a community activist and a leader. Ms. Simmons has been involved in Black political community empowerment movements and in the progressive political causes for more than 40 years. She chooses to work locally using advocacy, community education, coalition building, and organizing methods, as well as legal, civil rights, and human rights tools. She has had a string of major voting rights victories, including a win before the U.S. Supreme Court over violations of the Voting Rights Act and the U.S. Constitution. Ms. Simmons is a native Brooklynite, very proud of that. She is a deeply spiritual person who was grounded in African culture. She's a Yoruba Lukumi priest of Shango and Ilase, Ashe. She finds constant inspiration in the example of her ancestors, her belief in peace, and her respect for life and cultural diversity. She's the proud mother of 3 adult sons and the grandmother of 7. Ms. Simmons lives in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, with her husband, Leslie Jean-Jacques. Simmons has decades of experience in working for truth no matter who tells it, justice no matter who it's for or against. I'm very proud to name her as the first appointee to the Civilian Complaint Review Board by the Office of the Public Advocate. She knows the systemic injustices in our law enforcement, seen today in the disparity in COVID-19 enforcement, and seen for decades in cases that have come before the CCRB. I know she'll be a powerful, but I have to make sure we all know a fair voice in that oversight, making sure that none overrides the other, and that we make sure the truth comes out and that people feel there's a place that will hear their voice. And I'm just very proud that I've had the opportunity. We interviewed a lot of candidates. We went through a lengthy process, and I'm very proud that Esmeralda came through that, and is my first appointee to the CCRB.
Thank you, Giovanni. We thank the public advocate for being with us, and we want to welcome Esmeralda Simmons. I personally have followed her work for now decades, which may say something a little bit about both of us in terms of how long we've been at this, and have admired her work over time. Now, I think she may be having some technical problems right now, but if she can talk to us, we want to give her a chance to introduce herself and say hello. If not, and we'll get those technical issues resolved and come back to her later. Esmeralda, I see you've gone off of mute, so I think we can at least hear from you, even though we can't see you. So welcome. Esmeralda, are you there? Okay, well, we will fix those technical issues, and then we'll talk to her a little bit later tonight. But Giovanni, thank you. Thank you for all that you do for the city, and thank you for appointing Esmeralda to the board, and we look forward to working with her.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay as long as you want, but I know you're busy and need to get on to other things.
I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Peace and blessings. Love and light to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace. All right. So while we wait for our newest board member to get her technical issues sorted through, we would like to have board members who, other board members to introduce themselves. I'm Fred Davey. I'm the chair of the board. I'm an appointee of the mayor and the speaker, and I have a little bit more to say momentarily. I'm going to go around the horn here as I see you on my screen and have the board members introduce themselves. So I will start with Ms. Pinsky.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Angela Pinsky. I am a mayoral appointee, and I am from Brooklyn.
Thank you. Ms. Irish.
Hi, everyone. My name is Corrine Irish. I'm a mayoral appointee. I actually grew up in Queens, so I'm very happy that this is the focus of this meeting.
Ms. Bond.
Good evening, all. My name is Erica Bond. I'm a mayoral appointee and born and raised in Brooklyn.
Mr. Dwyer.
My name is Frank Dwyer. I too was born and raised in Brooklyn, and I now live in Queens, and I'm a police commissioner designee.
Mr. Siegel.
Good evening, John Siegel. I'm a mayoral designee on the board, and I live in the Bronx, and in better times I practice law in Manhattan. And I want to welcome Ms. Simmons to the board, who I very much look forward to working with.
Thank you. Mr. Puma.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joseph Puma. I'm a city council designee to the board from the borough of Manhattan, and I'm coming to you from my public housing apartment in Manhattan, where I grew up. And welcome to Ms. Simmons.
Mr. Rivadeneira.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Rivadeneira. I am a council designee, and I proudly hail from the Bronx. So I would also like to welcome Ms. Simmons.
Mr. Joseph.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nathan Joseph. I'm a city council designee from the borough of Staten Island, where I live and grew up, even though I was born in the Bronx, and I love the Bronx too. And welcome, Ms. Simmons.
Mr. Freeman.
I'm William Freeman, and I'm a police commissioner appointee. And welcome, Ms. Simmons. Glad to have you on.
Thank you. Did I hear that Mr. Kakatera might be trying to join us by phone? Sal, are you there? All right. And let me try one more time for Ms. Simmons to see if we can hear from her. Esmeralda, are your technical issues any better? It doesn't look like it. All right. We'll get back to, we'll continue to try to get Ms. Simmons' technical issues repaired, and if we can, we'll hear from her later tonight. So I'm going to declare that we have a quorum. I'm going to ask that we approve the minutes, and then I'll have a few remarks. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the June meeting, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Thank you. And thank you all. As we can see in this time, this is a time of fairly serious transformation in the country. While there's a long way to go in police reform, Americans from diverse communities across the nation have been taking to the streets and calling for change in the months since George Floyd's death. Already, we have been pushed closer to the transformation in the relationship between the police and the community that we seek. I've seen a report just today from the State Attorney General's preliminary recommendations of her investigation following the protests in the wake of the death of George Floyd. There are a number of recommendations to strengthen CCRB's oversight of the NYPD, and I welcome these recommendations and will work with my fellow board members, CCRB's executive staff, and others to engage the State Attorney General with regard to this report. We recognize and acknowledge the tragic increase in shootings and murders in the city. I personally have reached out to City Hall, civic leaders, and fellow clergy about ways to involve the community in reducing this violence as the police department adjusts its strategies to address the burst of violence we've seen over these last several weeks. There are some who have suggested that reforms in police oversight have contributed in part to this uptick in violence in the city. That contention is curious to me, since none of the recent changes has had time to be fully implemented. We believe the changes in oversight will prove to be a positive for both the public and police officers. One of the major changes that affects us as New Yorkers is the repeal of Civil Rights Law 50A, which Governor Cuomo signed into law just a few weeks ago. I know our Executive Director, Jonathan Darsh, has a few things to say about how this affects the CCRB, but as chair, I'd just like to acknowledge what a monumental change the repeal of 50A is for New York. As I said during last month's meeting, this isn't by happenstance. It's the culmination of years of effort from everyday New Yorkers who challenged the status quo. The CCRB is committed to doing everything it can to ensure New Yorkers have access to information about officers in their communities. I believe this knowledge is power, and with the knowledge of what police are doing in their city, civilians will now have an unprecedented level of power and as they push for a better NYPD. This truly is a new era in police oversight, and as we embark on it, the CCRB looks forward to continued work with all those who are committed to more effective civilian oversight and greater accountability and transparency in policing in New York City. Before I turn things over to John, I again want to thank CCRB staff who have had to take a significant workload in the last few weeks and are doing so with unparalleled passion for serving New York City. I also want to thank the members of the public who are joining us this evening. We all have a great deal on our minds right now, which makes your presence tonight all the more meaningful. Finally, On behalf of the board and on behalf of our fellow New Yorkers, I want to thank all essential workers who continue to go out and keep our city running in the face of COVID-19. Thank you. Thank you all. And I now turn the meeting over to our Executive Director, who has a few words, Jonathan Darsh. John.
To the board. As a Queens native, I'm looking forward to tonight's focus on the borough. A lot has happened since we last met. Protests have continued. We are at more than 750 complaints received since the protest began at the end of May. We are now at 219 protest-related incidents that we are investigating. We are fully committed to investigating all of these incidents, contacting witnesses, gathering evidence. It is the agency's priority to reach thorough, fact-based, impartial determinations in all of these allegations of misconduct. As the chair mentioned, the governor signed into law a repeal of Civil Rights Law 50A, a law that prohibited civilians from accessing police disciplinary records. It is now a priority for this agency to ensure New Yorkers know that there is accountability for police misconduct by providing as much transparency into our processes as possible. The CCRB has received numerous requests for police records since the repeal of 50A, and we are keeping up with them as best as we can with the resources we have. The Office of Management and Budget authorized the agency to hire an additional 2 attorneys to focus on the FOIL work. In the first week after repeal, we got as many requests as we had the entire year before. But we are not going to just address 50A through relying on the public to file FOIL requests. We want to make it easier for people to find out what's going on in the police disciplinary process. One thing that we've already done is upgrade our administrative prosecution unit's trial calendar. If you go to our website and click on prosecutions and then click on the link for the trial calendar, you will no longer just see a case number. You will see the subject officer's name and rank and the allegations with which they are charged. We are working on developing a searchable database that you can use from the CCRB's website. You'll be able to search by name, command, or rank on that website, and it will contain all active and retired members of the NYPD, officers who have received complaints, as well as officers with no CCRB history at all. And we're going to have a demonstration of that website, that search engine later today, but it won't be live until the end of the month. And I want to thank DeWitt and especially Commissioner Tisch for assisting us in making this possible. As you'll see, our team, led by Lincoln McVeigh, has done a great job developing the central engine, but making it work once we roll it out for everyone in the city who wants to use this database is a bigger challenge. The office is now open to the public, but we urge individuals who can contact us by telephone, email, or website to do so. We are accepting in-person complaints in a limited capacity. We still strongly encourage people to file online or over the phone. To file online, please go to nyc.gov/CCRB complaint or call us at 1-800-341-2272. Investigators are working remotely, conducting civilian interviews by telephone. We continue to subpoena businesses and government entities and receive police paperwork. We have resumed officer interviews through a combination of virtual and in-person interviews. Public comment is a little bit different when you're using WebEx. please use your raise the hand feature to make a comment. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. If you have specific questions related to a presentation, please use the Q&A feature. Don't raise your hand. And questions and comments not related to the presentations should be saved for the public session. In the past, we discouraged members of the public from discussing incidents that they were involved in as part of their public comments. As part of the agency's response to the repeal of 50A, we will no longer discourage that, but investigators will follow up with individuals who testify regarding incidents of misconduct. I want to thank the staff for allowing us to continue our operations, and I want to thank the public for participating. And Mr. Chair, I think there's a member of the Queens community, Assemblyman David Weprin, who is on the phone right now if you wanted to recognize him.
Sure. Thank you, John. And Assemblyman Weprin, welcome. And would you like to give a few remarks? Welcome to the CCRB's July meeting.
And Assemblymember Weprin, is your call-in, is there a 333? Oh, actually, you wouldn't be able to unmute me. We'll go back to the Assembly member just to confirm his to unmute.
Thank you, Yahira. Well, since you're talking to us, Yahira, we will go to you and ask you to introduce other elected officials or their representatives who are on with us tonight.
Yeah, we want to welcome Adrian Felton from the Attorney General's office, Randa Zhang from Councilmember Rivera's office, Shayna Gladden from Assemblymember Hydeman's office, as well as Community Board 14 and Community Board 8.
Thank you. And we welcome all of you, and we appreciate your being with us. Until we get the Assembly members' communications addressed, we'll go on to have our presentation on public policy data. I'd like to introduce to you Lincoln McVeigh, who will do a presentation on the data application that he has created, which will soon be available to the public. This application will allow the public to access certain disciplinary information on members of the NYPD. Lincoln.
Hello, my name is Lincoln McVeigh. I'm the Director of Analytics at CCRB. As Mr. Darsh said, the CCRB has developed a new tool to allow the general public to search officer complaint histories on our website. We're still completing QA testing on the tool, but we expect to go live before the end of this month. In the meantime, I'm going to give a brief demo of the officer search tool. The officer lookup tool will allow users to search for both active members of service, shown here, and inactive members of service, shown here. Users can search by command of officer, by rank, by the number of substantiated complaints, or by first and last name. At present, we are looking at active officers with 5+ substantiated complaints. When we click on a row on the officer's name, the lower data grid will update to give us the detail of that officer's history. So this officer, Charles Irwani, has had 8 complaints filed against him, and 5 of those complaints were substantiated. The listing here is all of the allegations that were part of the complaints filed against him. You can see the police department dispositions and penalties by scrolling to the right. And you can look at a different officer by selecting a different name. So To reiterate what John said, this search tool is not live yet on our website, but it will be by the end of July, and we look forward to all of you using it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lincoln. Let me see if there are any questions or comments from members of the board. All right, Yahira, are there any questions or comments on Lincoln's presentation from the members of the public?
Just going to pass that on to Jerica.
Sure. Any comments from members of the public? Go ahead, Jerica.
Hi, Chair Davey. We have one question from Latoya Jeffers. The question is, will CCRB publish all records or only those records that have been substantiated?
I think I know the answer to that. John, you want to answer that?
There'll be all records. The only records that will not be listed are open investigations and cases that are mediated.
Thank you, John. Any other questions?
No, that's the only question for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before we move on to here, and Lincoln, thank you too for your hard work on this, because I know that you all have put a lot of time into getting this database up and running, and we look forward to its going live at the end of the month. So thank you and all the team that's worked with you to make this possible. Before we go on to hear from Yahira and the public outreach team, I see that Ms. Simmons at Esmeralda is now with us live, and it's so good to see you. So we're going to give you a chance, if you wish, to say a few words, and then we'll proceed with the rest of the agenda. Esmeralda Simmons.
I actually have been listening to the meeting, but I was not available through video. I've decided how I'm going to correct that in meetings going forward. But I am absolutely thrilled, excuse me, and honored to have been named to this board by public advocate Jumaane Williams. And I look forward to serving with all of my colleagues. I have been extremely impressed by the professionalism of the staff and by the dedication of the board and obviously the chair. Communications are great. They're extremely helpful. And I know that my work on the CCRB is something that will help New York City. And I've been working on CCRB issues for over 40 years. So this is a culmination of policy work to truly see that the board can be effective with my participation. Thank you. I'm honored.
Thank you, Esmeralda. And we look forward to working with you, and it's good. Feels like full circle. It's good to have this opportunity again to be in partnership and collaboration with you on work on behalf of the people of the city of New York. So thank you. We're going to hear from Assembly Member Weprin, who I think is now on the phone. Assembly Member Weprin, welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. This is a historic meeting because it's the first meeting after major police reforms that I was proud to support in the state legislature, and that was followed by historic reforms in the New York City Council, a body that I served in prior to the State Assembly. And of course, I have a long-time family relationship with your executive director, Jonathan Darsh, a Queens native, and someone that I know for more years than either of us probably want to admit. But, you know, the comprehensive legislative package in Albany that I was proud to support will help ensure that bad police officers are held accountable, promote transparency, and begin the process of rebuilding trust between communities and the police sworn to protect them. Make no mistake, I'm not against law enforcement. I'm just against bad policing and bad cops who should not be wearing a uniform. We all understand completely how dangerous and difficult the job is to be a police officer, but with great power comes great responsibility, and where there is great power, there is an acute need to make sure that that power is not abused. We see it abused far too often, and today we say enough is enough. The law enforcement reform bills that we passed a couple of weeks ago are only the first step, and of course there's still so much more important work that needs to be done. So your role with the Civilian Complaint Review Board becomes even more important with these changes by the legislature and the City Council, and I look forward to working with all of you as we go through this uncharted territory, but something I think that eventually will be a great thing and show to be more transparency, better policing, and better community police relations.
Thank you, Assembly Member, and we appreciate your work on behalf of this reform, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and your office to advance the reforms that have been made. I want to acknowledge before I go any further that I am a Queens resident also, and I'm actually in Long Island City in my apartment as we speak. So we thank you for your comments.
Well, I appreciate that, but I still go back a lot longer with Jonathan Darsh than almost anybody I know.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. That's great. And we'll look forward to continuing to capitalize on that partnership, again, for the better of the people in the city. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. We're going to, I see that Chris Dunn has raised his hand for a question and comment. So Chris, and then we'll go to your high-risk presentation. I think they may have to unmute Chris. And while they do that, Chris, if you're not there, why don't you, Hiram, we'll go to your presentation, and then we'll get back to Chris after your presentation. Hiram.
All right, sounds good. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge some other members in attendance. Tiffany Eason from Councilmember Richard's office, who we'll be hearing from later this evening. Michelle Hernandez from Congressmember Ocasio-Cortez's office, as well as Takoya Jones from Councilmember Francisco Moya's office. So today I just want to go over briefly a little bit about the agency for those that don't know, but then also just a quick refresher for those that are familiar, and go over a little bit of our jurisdiction and how to file a complaint with us. So as we discussed, this is an all-civilian agency. Our board is composed of 15 members. 5 are appointed by the mayor, 5 are appointed by the city council, 3 designated by the police commissioner, and 1, as you heard from, presently appointed by the public advocate. The chair is co-appointed jointly by the mayor and the city council. As we've heard, the Civilian Complaint Review Board is the nation's largest independent oversight entity of the nation's largest police force. And we are mandated to investigate, mediate, and administratively prosecute allegations of police misconduct. But with that said, we don't investigate all allegations of police misconduct. There are 4 major categories that fall under our jurisdiction. A way of remembering that is the acronym FADO, F-A-D-O. So the F stands for force. So if a civilian interacts with a police officer and force is used, that falls under our jurisdiction. We would investigate that to determine if it was excessive or unnecessary given the totality of the circumstances. The second category is pretty large, but some of the elements that are included in abuse of authority may be an improper stop, an improper search, a police officer refusing to identify themselves upon request, refusing to provide a business card, which I'll get into in a second, and also forceful removal to the hospital, and threatening to call ICE on a civilian. The third category is discourtesy. So these are allegations of profanity, an inappropriate gesture, Or for example, if a police officer asks for my ID, I give it to her, and on that ID sheet. And the final category is offensive language. So that's language that inappropriately refers to my race, my ethnicity, my sexual orientation, my religion, my disability status. You don't want to hear those words and terms in the workplace, but especially coming from our police officers, and it's something that we take very seriously and will investigate. So as I mentioned briefly before, I wanted to remind everyone that the Right to Know Act is law and is still in effect. It went into law in 2018. Some major elements of the law are that police officers must identify themselves by providing their name and their shield upon request. In majority of situations, police officers must proactively provide that information to the civilian by giving them a business card, which looks like this. And refusal to provide that business card would be something that we investigate. In the majority of circumstances, if a police officer does not have the legal justification to search you, they must request your permission to search. So that is informing you of your right to say no, and that includes informing you of your right to say no in requesting consent to search your person, property, vehicle, or home. Also, in situations where I may be monolingual and may not understand what the police officer is saying, a police officer must provide language access services, and that's something also that we would investigate. I want to remind everyone to file a complaint. You can do so online on our website, nyc.gov/CCRB. You can call us directly, 1-800-341-CCRB, or by calling 311. Although our offices are open, if you are able to, please utilize the online and phone system. We are able to accommodate those that come in, but for the safety of all involved, those are avenues that you can use. And as discussed last month, as a reminder, that due to recent litigation, members of the public can file a complaint based off of footage of misconduct that they've witnessed via social media. And you can, again, file a complaint online or over the phone. Or for more information, you can follow us on our Twitter handle or IG handle at CCRB_NYC. If you'd like to request a presentation, we're doing virtual presentations in all 5 boroughs. I know in Queens we've been attending different community boards and community partnership programs, but we're open to after-school programs. Whatever is available to Queens residents, we're happy to be there. And last note, in regards to Queens data and information, in the chat box you'll see a Queens briefing book with data about Queens-specific precincts, the types of allegations and number of allegations received, and also information on how to access our data transparency initiative. And I'll take any questions if folks have them.
So let's see if any of the board members have questions. Board members, any of the board members have questions? All right. I understand that Chris Dunn from the ACLU had his hand up, and then we'll hear from him, and then I'll ask Jerica Richardson if there are any other questions from the public. So let's see if we can hear from Chris Dunn and his comments and questions. Chris, are you there? Okay, so let's try Jerica. Jerica, any questions from the public?
Yes, we have one question from Lizzie Alvarado Ford. The question is, how do you follow up with complaints submitted on social media by people who were not there? Are those seen automatically as unsubstantiated because they do not have a complainant who was present? Executive Director Darsh, do you want to take this one?
Our investigative staff is quite good at determining who alleged victims are and who civilian witnesses are and who subject officers are, even if they're not unidentified. They're not identified at the start of an investigation. The recent protest cases have proven to be challenging, more challenging than usual because of the large numbers of incidents that are happening with people who are wearing masks, and sometimes it's not possible to see shield numbers or name tags. We are committed to investigating the allegations that we've received in these recent cases, as well as all of the cases and all of the complaints that we receive. And I know that Mr. Dunn is there, and he says he can't unmute himself. So if Soren could unmute him, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Jerica, any other questions from the public at this point?
Not at the moment. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So while we wait for Chris to get unmuted, are there comments from community groups? Higher, do we have? Sure, please go ahead.
So we're going to start with Genevieve Wong. She's a staff attorney for Legal Aid. Soren, can you unmute her?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, welcome.
My name is, thank you so much for having me. So first of all, thank you to the board for having me tonight. Thank you for allowing me some time to speak to everyone. I really appreciate it. So yes, I am, my name is Genevieve Wong. I am a staff attorney at the COP Accountability Project at the Legal Aid Society. Our project empowers organizations and communities across New York City to hold police officers accountable for human rights violations. We also run our own database that tracks police misconduct in New York City that is used by public defense attorneys, civil rights, and human rights organizations. This database is mostly contains information regarding public civil lawsuits. And beyond the database, we also work to improve police accountability and transparency by advocating against problematic policing policies, fighting police secrecy laws like 50A, and litigating freedom of information law denials. And so one of our newest projects that we've launched in response to the recent protests, and we hope will continue even beyond that, we've launched a CCRB complaint clinic. We are offering to members of the public and to our clients this complaint clinic so that if they witnessed or experienced police misconduct during the protest or otherwise, they can reach out to us. We have several hundred volunteer attorneys who are ready to assist members of the public. And one of the reasons why I think it's really a great clinic is it'll be able to connect volunteer lawyers with members of the public at an early stage, so that if there are other legal concerns that they're concerned with, for example, if they might have a pending criminal case or if they're exploring the options of pursuing a civil litigation and they want to know how a CCRB complaint might interact with that, that is what our clinic is there for, to provide that crucial legal guidance early on during that stage. And those so to connect to our clinic, you can email nycprotests@legal-aid.org, or you can call 212-298-3303 to leave a name, reliable contact information, and pronouns so that we can match you with a volunteer attorney who could reach out and schedule an intake interview and get the process started on all of those, on all the aspects of filing a civil complaint.
Thank you. Let me see if any of the board members have any questions or comments.
This is Nathan Joseph. I have one quick question. These services are available to all members of New York City, all residents of New York City, not just Queens. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Any other questions? Mr. Rivadeneira.
It's actually a follow-up to Mr. Joseph's question. Is this all being remotely done, this clinic, or is it an in-person clinic, or is it a hybrid of that?
I think I caught part of it. Could you repeat the question?
It's in terms of the clinic, is it going to be a remote clinic, an in-person clinic, or is it a hybrid where you can do either or? You may have mentioned it, but I missed it. I'm sorry.
So right now, because of the current circumstances, it is a fully remote clinic. That's why we need reliable contact information, whether that is a phone number or an email address. Intake interviews will take place either over the phone or via video conference if that is an option that's available for the member of the public. Hopefully when we get past this crisis, it will be more of a hybrid clinic where we can do in-person as well as remote matching of volunteer attorneys with members of the public.
Thank you. Other comments, other questions? All right, well, thank you for your presentation, and we will look forward to continuing to be in discussion and conversation. I'm going to ask now if we can again try and see if we can hear from Chris Dunn. Not quite sure what's going on there, so we will. I'll go back to your hiring and see if there are other community groups who have signed up to speak.
Yes, and before we go to Afar, I wanted to acknowledge that Destiny Cruz from Congressmember Ocasio-Cortez's office is also here. So next we'll be hearing from Afar, sorry, Nashir. He's the Executive Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations of New York.
Welcome.
Everyone, let's see. Can you hear me?
Please. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, good evening to everyone. Thank you so much. So my name is Afaf. It's AFAF, Nasher. And I am the Executive Director for the Council on American Islamic Relations New York chapter. CARE in general is a civil rights organization. It's national in scope, and our office handles all the civil rights abuses and cases that fall under the New York State, primarily for Muslim Americans, which are about 1 million in number in New York State. But obviously any discriminatory matter is a concern for us, and so you do not have to belong to any one particular faith for us to help. And we are based in Queens, and I actually live in Queens, so I thank the entire board for this opportunity to speak and to be heard. And I also in particular want to thank Marwa Rigi, who actually is the first one that initiated contact with our organization to do a presentation, and I know she's been doing a tremendous job going around the Muslim community to try to offer the information that was presented earlier on how to make a complaint. Now, in my presentation, essentially, I know it's a 2-minute presentation that we've been asked to respect the time limit, and I'll certainly hope to do that. There are several questions that were given that we can choose from, and they're all important questions. I'm going to focus in essentially on major concerns with respect to precincts in the Queens area that I am aware of as a civil rights organization and as a grassroots organization, and also the topic of body-worn cameras. So with regards to some major concerns that I have seen, especially in our work at CARE New York, we continue to see reports of intimidation of our folks, and especially in immigrant communities with regards to police officers asking them about their immigration status. I'll highlight this really. I always like to use real examples because there's a certain humanity in presenting them. Just recently, there was questioning of a young man and his mother, and when that person asserted their right to have an attorney present, the police officers got very agitated and assertive and started questioning him on his immigration status and whether or not any upcoming appointments have been canceled. Now, we know, of course, that that is something that police officers are not supposed to do. We're supposed to be a sanctuary city. That goes against policies. But the truth of the situation is if the CCRB community and family and us as advocates are honest with ourselves, the truth is that once you've been intimidated in that manner, it makes it that much more difficult to actually file a complaint. And so that is certainly one big concern that I think needs to be looked into. The second issue is just from an attorney perspective, and I'm sure that other organizations who do pro bono services like us, there's a huge lack of transparency, and I know that's exactly what CCRB is trying to get really at the root of with regards to your work. But anyone who's ever had to fight with the NYPD for any piece of information, much less larger litigation, knows that it is always an uphill battle because the NYPD will not, with all due respect, and I understand that their job is tremendous as well, but when it comes to transparency, even things that are common sense, there's never a single centimeter that is given. And considering the amount of resources that the NYPD, which of course was a huge issue with regards to budget discussions, for organizations, for individual attorneys, and for citizens, it becomes almost impossible to be able to ascertain the right information to substantiate claims. And I know from my understanding that to some extent CCRB faces those kinds of lack of transparency with the NYPD, and I think I'll circle back to that towards the end with regards to empowering CCRB for certain types of matters. The last part of what I want to discuss with regards to some concerns within our community is we have also seen, especially from the Muslim community and from immigrant communities, a lack of serious investigations being conducted by NYPD, even for serious offenses. Again, using a very specific case, it's public, so there's no issues with regards to sharing this information. We did have a person of color of African heritage who was attacked coming off of a bus. This person actually, even after initially wasn't able to identify the picture of her aggressors when she was in the hospital, but she did want the NYPD to further investigate. That investigation was simply dropped initially. She had to go and collect her own evidence. After she presented that evidence, which included footage from nearby stores, then there was a huge public outcry as she contacted our organization. The case was reopened, but we've seen definitely this trend of people from our communities saying NYPD is not going to take our complaint seriously. Why should I even bother to report it, right? So whether or not that falls within the jurisdiction of CCRB, which I don't believe it does in accordance to the different categories of situations that you've described, which does fall under your jurisdiction, perhaps it needs to be. So I would make that suggestion to all of you. Second part of what I want to speak about is body-worn cameras. We know that NYPD officers, all of them are supposed to wear them. We also know that cameras can be used for very good cause. There's police accountability, but there's also vindication of officers who have been wrongfully accused of something, right? And I think the main question that needs to be asked as far as their effectiveness is who controls the footage? That is central, I believe, also to the CCRB investigations. So when the NYPD controls the footage from the beginning and gives, whether it's CCRB or another organization, whether it's through a FOIA request or any other, and gives us a hard time to actually obtain the footage, then that is very, very problematic. When CCRB itself needs to sign a non-disclosure agreement in order to watch the footage, that is a problem. When the NYPD has the power to decide which footage is relevant, that is a problem. When more than 40% of all footage is redacted, that is a problem. It's a problem to investigate. It goes back to the lack of transparency. We know that CCRB is trying so hard, and I give you guys a lot of credit. I'm sure you're understaffed, but we know that there are huge backlogs of requests, and setting up parameters in which the person you are trying to investigate and gain transparency from controls the evidence itself, it just doesn't make sense. The other part of body cameras, which I would like to bring to your attention, is while body cameras can be used again for either police accountability or in favor of a police officer to vindicate him or herself, there is an issue of surveillance, and that is particularly true in the Muslim American community, where if you see an investigation by the Office of the Inspector General, more than 90 or 95% of intelligence resources have been focused on the Muslim community. We believe it's illegal. We believe it's unjustified. And we know this because there have been multiple actions and lawsuits in place which prove essentially that we have been profiled religiously and by our national origin. And this is an ongoing battle. And considering the fact that technology is rapidly changing and that body cameras can now be used to also have facial recognition tools, which, by the way, 50% of which in terms of people of color can be wrongfully identified. So you can imagine the margin of error that that can create for people of color. That is also something that is of huge concern for our community. So again, the use of body cameras, who controls the footage? Is it being used for surveillance purposes? Is it being used to surveil protesters, for example? Is it being used for profiling methods? Those are all issues that relate to body cameras that I think CCRB or other agencies really need to dig in a bit more in order to effectuate change to protect people. Last thing that I'll just touch, I apologize. I just want to say that, again, I know CCRB has an immense undertaking. I know that one of the biggest concerns for my community or any community in bringing forth a request for an investigation or complaint is that I would like to see CCRB, and many others would agree, the authority to actually have a disciplinary action taken. So long as the commissioner can ignore the recommendation, so long as that the majority of proposed punishments are ignored, 2/3 or more, then essentially it really sends the message to the public that CCRB, even well-intentioned, cannot really assert its authority over NYPD in any responsible manner. So I hope that the power that is given to CRB only increases over time. It's a useful, you are a useful advocate for us, and I hope that your efforts are honored with more empowering duties and responsibilities and availability of tools and resources. Thank you so much. I apologize for going over my time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to just make a brief comment. I'm trying to comment on body camera footage. I'll open it up to see if our members have any comments as well, or questions. So just two quick comments. One, I do believe that we should, that the agency should have unfettered direct access to body-worn camera footage. I've said that in other venues. I'll say it again here. I think it would just be more efficient and better for everyone, and it will hold staff accountable who are responsible for accessing that footage and using it on behalf of the investigations that they do. The other thing I will say is that if you'll note in the Attorney General's recommendations that came out just this afternoon, one of the recommendations is about binding disciplinary recommendations coming from CCRB. We've long advocated for greater concurrence between the agency and the NYPD. I think some form of binding disciplinary recommendations is in order, and we'll be, as I said in my remarks, working with everyone, this board, the staff here, the AG's office, and all interested parties on seeing how we can strengthen the civilian oversight of policing in New York City. And you've mentioned several areas that are key and central to the work that we do. John, do you want to talk about body camera footage, and then I'll turn to the other members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Currently, there are, I think, 1,207 outstanding body-worn camera requests, and I share all of your, all the priorities you place on body-worn camera and direct access to body-worn camera, but I think it's important to note that the department has changed their approach to providing body-worn camera footage in light of the recent protest cases. In the last 5 weeks, we've received 212 responses to our body-worn camera requests. We've received 92 positive hits on body-worn camera footage, and a total of 921 videos have been shared to the CCRB. So I think while I share the entire staff's and board's desire for direct access, I think it's also important to note that the department is trying to reduce the backlog. And based on the steps that I've been discussing with executives at NYPD Legal, I think they are taking steps that will reduce the backlog.
Thank you, John. And it is good news to both hear and see that that backlog is being addressed, and that we're getting the kind of cooperation that we need, at least at this point, from the department to address it. So thank you. Comments, questions from members of the board? Ms. Puma.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The speaker spoke about clients or sort of anecdotes from clients about in which officers allegedly asked civilians their immigration status. I wanted to clarify with the staff if that is an allegation type within our abuse of authority jurisdiction that we plead.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. And so we would encourage the speaker to encourage her community to file a complaint with the CCRB around these types of issues. Any other? Go ahead, John.
Chair, I think I'm going to ask Yahira to connect someone from investigations to the speaker to see if we could set up a way for people to bring those complaints to us in a way that they feel comfortable despite their immigration status.
Great. Thank you, John. And thank you, Yahira. Any other questions or comments from members of the board? Esmeralda, you just have to take yourself off mute.
Yes, I wanted to know if we have any information I'm sorry, about the other surveillance methods being used by NYPD. I noticed in several protest marches that there was so much helicopter and can't remember the name of unmanned drones that you could barely hear yourself think. So do we have any information about, we have access to any of the footage that's taken by these other types of surveillance methods?
I'm going to assume that we would have access to any footage that's in the possession of the NYPD that relates to an investigation, unless there's some compelling reason not to. But I'm going to ask John to either verify or refute or modify what I just said. John?
I know that we do receive TARU footage, which are recordings that are made by NYPD personnel of protests. I think Ms. Simmons has already made her first contribution to the operations of the agency, because I will double check on the drone footage and report back to the board next month. The board sooner and the public next month.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Esmeralda. Other questions or comments from the board? All right, so I understand that we have Councilmember Donovan Richards, who is on the line or on the Zoom and wants to give us some remarks. Councilmember.
Oh, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
We can, yes. Please,
all right.
Go ahead.
All right, awesome.
Right.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you. I know it's been such a complicated time, but it's good to see all of you on this line, and I want to thank CCRB for their steadfast commitment to ensuring that the public can be heard, and certainly we all have seen what has happened specifically around this time, around the protest, and I know we did a 10-hour hearing a few weeks ago in which we got to hear from a lot of the public. Attorney General Tish James also did something and released a report as well today. So I just want to urge everybody to make sure that they're using this agency as a vehicle to report their complaints. And then obviously we are looking at policy, and we passed about 7 bills, I think a few weeks ago, waiting for the mayor to sign those, which I think he alluded to he'll do next week, on the disciplinary matrix bill, especially, which was a bill that I sponsored, and I know CCRB certainly, I believe, has had their own matrix for a while, but we have a long way to go. We should not squander this opportunity to ensure that the oversight body, such as yours, is getting the resources it needs, it's getting the staffing that it needs to certainly follow up on a lot of these things, especially as the public's sentiments have certainly turned towards ensuring that we hold the NYPD accountable 24 hours, 7 days a week. So I wanted to be here just to more so listen to everyone. You know, we have, we'll be looking at hearings this year, obviously. And we'll be working very closely with CCRB to make sure that they have the things that they need during this specific moment as we talk about reimagining policing in the 21st century. You know, what does that look like? Does the CCRB have a larger role to play? And we know that historically civilian oversight boards have been stymied and hamstrung in really being able to hold law enforcement accountable. So this is a real opportunity that we should not waste, that we should not blow. And, you know, we will be here every step of the way to make sure that we're supportive, at least while we're here and beyond, to ensure that CCRB has all the tools it needs. So I just wanted to stop by to say thank you. I know there were a lot of complaints filed. I'm hoping that you're getting the support you need from agencies and from other entities that may also be looking at these issues. But I want you to know if you're not, you know, you have a friend in this corner to ensure that you are. So thank you so much. And once again, good to see you, Mr. Chair, and John and everybody on this line. Thank you.
Thank you. And I personally want to thank you for your support for the agency, for your accessibility when we've had to be in touch with you about various things, and definitely for your leadership on reform and strengthening police oversight. And we know that you're in the midst of something else at the moment and are awaiting to hear about the results of that. So we will stand with you as you await the outcome of those results as well. So, but thank you for your leadership. It's much appreciated.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we're gonna, let me see if there are any comments or questions from any of the board members. All right, so we're gonna try Chris Dunn again. Chris, are you there?
Fred, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Well, we can indeed.
No, there we go. Hello, everybody. Okay, thank you so much. And I think Pat Lynch was spending a lot of time trying to make sure I couldn't get on because he probably knew out of character, I'm going to say something very positive about the CCRB, and doesn't want that happening. So first, I'm sorry Jumani is no longer with us. It's a thrill to see him part of the CCRB process now. Ms. Simmons, welcome to you. I had no idea you had spent 4 decades dealing with police oversight here in New York City, so I look forward to learning from you. On 50A, Fred, I'm not really in the business of saluting government officials, but I want to salute you because you were out there saying, notwithstanding the things that the mayor was saying, that you supported the repeal of 50A, and you took a leadership position on that, and thank you. The database that got demonstrated is remarkable, and I think that's going to be an extraordinary resource for people, and I think it will hopefully be a model for other agencies both here in the city and around the state, because as John was pointing out, it's fine to say that you can FOIL us. That is a long and arduous process for everybody. It is much, much better to have agencies affirmatively make information available through databases like this. So that's really a remarkable step, and congratulations to the CCRB. Good for you. John mentioned the extraordinary number of complaints that you've gotten about the policing of the protests, and that has been a dispiriting last month we have had, first and foremost because of the need for the protests, but beyond that, the policing of the protests by the department, and particularly the use of force that was used in conjunction with policing those protests. And I know the agency is going to take a serious look at that. As was mentioned, you, of course, have the authority and responsibility not only to investigate complaints, but to issue policy reports. And I would strongly encourage you, as you have done in the past, to be looking at the policy issues that arise from the policing of the protests, because that was something that is a black mark on the city of New York and on the NYPD. and it's an opportunity for the CCRB to step in and really make some specific proposals along the lines of what the Attorney General's office started working on in its announcement today, but you can really go much further. And then the final thing I wanted to say is it is a new day, I hope, and I know that you hope, Fred, in the relationship between the CCRB and the police department. And Fred, I'm looking at the collar of your shirt, and Terry Monahan gets 4 stars. In my book, you get at least 5. And it is time for the CCRB to stop being a subservient agency to the NYPD. And they can do the policing, and the CCRB can do the misconduct oversight. And there are a lot of things that come with that, but I'm hoping that we will have a fundamental shift here in the city. And I know that you support that, Fred. I hope other members of the board support that. I certainly hope the mayor supports that, because this is a moment when we can make civilian oversight real. And I hope that you, Fred, I know you, Fred, will do it, and I hope that the board will pursue that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. And let me just say, and I hope that you'll hear this the way I'm going to say it, but the way I mean it, but the compliments coming from you, which we really appreciate, I take particularly seriously, because you might end up needing to sue us tomorrow morning for some reason, and I know you won't hesitate to do it. So, or to be critical. The fact that you have acknowledged the steps that we've made is, I think, worthy of serious consideration. So thank you. And you know, we're trying to live into this moment and step into a time that is crying out for change and transformation and reform. And needless to say, we won't always get it right, but I hope that when the books are closed on this board, that it will say that we at least were willing to enter the fray and take some steps and try to make some decisions to improve the quality of life of the people of City, New York, and do that particularly by improving the relationship between the department and the people that they are sworn to serve. So thank you, and I know you'll hold us accountable as we're trying to hold the department accountable. So thank you, Chris. Let me see if there are any. Sure. Let me see if there are any comments or questions from any of my colleagues on the board. All right. Well, thank you again, Chris, and I'm sure we'll be in touch again soon. So, Yahira, are there other community organizations?
Yes, we have 2 more invited community organizations. Just wanted to note that AFAF definitely looking forward to working with you in the upcoming weeks, and agree that Marwa is an incredible addition to the team. So next we'll be hearing from Elaine Short, president of the NAACP, the Far Rockaway branch.
Everybody can hear me, right?
Yes, welcome.
Okay, great. I thank you for having me here this evening. And I really am happy that the public can be searching and see active and inactive police officers. I'm really happy for that. And the questions that you have provided us were so important. All 6 of the questions were important. And I gave a short answer to all of them. I promise I'm not going to be over 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and I'm going to answer all of them. Sure. And you can time me right now. I'm going to start. Because I feel respect is an action that we need to see from all of the officers in the precincts. I'm treated wonderfully as a little old lady from the NAACP, but my brother wearing a hoodie, he's automatically assumed as a thug and treated as one. So I say respect as a person is what we need to see. And the Civilian Complaint Review Board needs to be more active and publicize more often the things that you do, so that will foster the public trust, because y'all do a lot and you need to put it out there. Now, third, there is no reason why the police, firefighters, correctional officers records should be denied to the public. They should be open just like a teacher. If that teacher hits a child, are held accountable immediately, and their records is checked for any other complaints. So officers have to be held accountable. And we have to see where the Civilian Review Complaint Board is backing us in this fight. I don't think that 50 age should make a difference in if someone wants to file a complaint, they should just file a complaint. But what I am concerned about is qualified immunity. Qualified immunity makes it difficult to hold police officers accountable for wrongdoing and from lawsuits. The city is sued, and that's money being paid out of my tax dollars. The one precinct in my area paid over $1 million in police wrongdoing. Officers use the defense of acting in good faith or in the line of duty. Also, there must be a case on the books with identical facts already that matches your case. So you can charge the officer. Example, the U.S. Court of Appeal for the Sixth Circuit in November 2019. Now, an earlier court case in which it was found to be unconstitutional to sick your police dog on a suspect lying on the ground who surrendered. Now, in November of 2019, it was a case that was dismissed because the officer let his dog bite the suspect who surrendered and was sitting on the ground. So the officer was not charged because the suspect was sitting and not lying. So with qualified immunity, an officer can get away with anything as long as no one else did it before. So I said that's something that that needs to be discussed and to further look into. Now the fourth is the community love the neighborhood community officers. It is the detective and the other officers that's the problem, the plainclothes detective. And I feel, the fifth one, I feel that the police officers should be penalized if they turn off their body cam. And the pictures should not be blocked or redacted like it was in the George Floyd case. And the last one, all officers need psych evaluation and background checks. You need to make sure that the officers are not a part of any hate group and that they do not have a history of violence, including domestic violence. This would help to ensure a better police-community relationship, and we should not have police officers living in Long Island but working in the Bronx. So, did anybody time me?
No, but thank you. Thank you very much. Let me see if any of my colleagues have questions or comments. All right, well, we appreciate your contributions here. We will review your comments and either members of the board or staff will follow up with you, and I'm sure your HIRA's staff will continue to engage around the issues that you've raised. But thank you, and thank you for your leadership in the community.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Sure. Yahira.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Short. Last we'll be hearing from Salim Saeed. He's the General Secretary for the Interfaith Council for Community Development. And Salim, if you want to enable your video, you can, or just do audio if you'd like.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Salim Syed, and I'm the Secretary of representing the Interfaith Council for Community Development. It's a Queens-based organization. Our mission is to nourish the spirit of understanding and cooperation among the diverse religious institutions and people of faith in the community, and to be a visible example of tolerance and respect, and to provide opportunities for all people of New York to join in interfaith programs, worship, charity, and education. We believe that good relations can open the way to peace throughout the city, and the involvement of the community in interfaith dialogue is in a cooperative, constructive, and positive interaction between people of different religious traditions. The most important aspect of an interfaith relationship is respect. And you often see on the NYPD cars that CPR is their motive. Courtesy, professionalism, and respect. So if a person has these three things inculcated in their mind and heart, then there are no problems. But there are a few, that they don't, bad policing and bad cops is always there. So my sister Afaf Nasher, representing CARE, has very well brought up the points from the Muslim community, how discriminative things that happens in our neighborhoods. So I echoed her points, and we need serious investigation of those complaints by NYPD, and CCRB is the real overseeing the NYPD. They can help the communities and bring these issues to resolution. I would also like to propose here CCRB partner with faith-based organization in the city to help the victims. There are other organizations that the people are often reluctant to come forward and either complain or tell their stories of discrimination or anything that they encounter, and they have no place to go. So those are the things, especially use of force. When you have a body camera, video evidence is the vital piece of information that you could see in black and white. So those are the things that that should be available to any organization as a Freedom of Information or CCRB, and have a more and they have more stake to those video footages. I thank you for the opportunity to attend this meeting and listen to other board members and know more about what's going on in other communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And let me just say, with reference to engaging clergy and community around, particularly around victim and complaint and victim and witness support, we are working to try to do that. Started a very preliminary conversation with the executive team of the agency this week about whether or not there's more that we could do with the faith and interfaith community as an agency. We have obviously a hire and her team are very good with engaging.
Chair David, you're distorting terribly.
Okay, probably my internet at the moment. Is that any better? Is that any better?
No.
No better. All right. Well, why don't I stop my comments and see if we have any other speakers.
We have a.
I'm going to try it without the headphones. Does that help?
No.
Doesn't help at all. Okay.
Well, if your headphones are still plugged in, I think that might be the issue.
No, I took them out.
Oh,
now you're good.
I'm not sure what's going on.
That's a lot better.
That's better? Okay, good. It's probably my headphones then. So what I was saying is that there's been an effort to just this, obviously your hire and her group, her team, are working hard to engage all community groups, including faith groups. I had a preliminary just communication with the exec team this week about further engaging more intentionally and more systematically, and maybe institutionally, with the interfaith community in New York as a whole. And I'll pursue those conversations and then have a conversation with you, the members, and then we can talk to the public a little bit more about that. But let me see if there are any comments or questions from any of the board members. All right, then, Yohaira, I think we are through our list of community speakers. Is that correct?
That's correct. Okay. We'll be entering our public comment portion. So if folks would like to speak or ask a question, just to use the raise a hand feature. We will keep comments to 2 minutes. And we will start now with Destiny Cruz had her hand up.
Thank you. And just a reminder of 2 minutes. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Oh, no, thank you. My question was answered already. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Perfect. Next, we'll be hearing from, I apologize for messing up your name, but Abdulhamid Arbab.
Hi, yes, my name is Abdulhamid Arbabi. I could just go by Hamid. I'm with CARE New York. And my question was regarding police in schools. I know that the CCRB conducted a recent report on youth policing, but with the recent changes to the budget, I was wondering how, with the DOE now underwriting sort of the budget for the police safety agents, quote unquote, how would this affect the CCRB's jurisdiction over complaints regarding such officers? And will there still be jurisdiction? And also, what steps is the CCRB taking to improve its investigations of police in schools and youth policing in general in the next school year, with the inevitable goal of generating more accountability?
John, do you want to take a stab at this? And then anyone
Thank you,
else from
Mr.
staff?
Chair.
Sure.
Thank you, Hamid. I think it's important to recognize the difference between school safety agents and police officers in schools. The CCRB does not have jurisdiction over over school safety agents in schools. We do have jurisdiction over police officers. The agency treats complaints against officers in schools just as seriously as we treat all other complaints. And we're good at investigating them. We're good at identifying officers, and there could be difficulties if we were to add school safety agents. We are experts in holding officers accountable to the standards that apply to them, and those standards are not the same for school safety agents. And so there would be a steep learning curve if the agency were to add in school safety agents to our jurisdiction.
Thank you. Any Any comments by members of the board on this question? All right, Yaira, next speaker. Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Thank you. Next, we will be hearing from John Logan.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So police commissioner ultimately has the final say in this discipline for police officers. I was wondering, with the repeal of 58, how does that give the public any real confidence with holding police officers, bad police officers, rogue police officers? How does that give the public any real confidence when, in fact, the police commissioner still has, on the final say, disciplinary actions?
I'll just take a quick, make a quick comment, and I'll see if John or any other members of the staff or board want to comment. So I think one of the final authority is the final authority right now. We work really hard to have greater concurrence between the department and the CCRB in terms of recommended discipline for substantiated cases, and we'll continue to work at that. I think 50A at least allows the public now to know more about the disposition of cases and more of what went into the disposition of those cases. And we hope all of that, leads to greater accountability and ongoing transparency. But we do need to tighten up the concurrence rate between the recommendations the agency makes and the decisions that the department makes. And again, you heard earlier tonight that there is within the Attorney General's preliminary recommendation of some type of binding disciplinary authority for the CCRB, and we'll be pursuing that and having conversations around that with the AG's office and all the other parties that are involved. But I do think 50A at least allows the public right now to know more about what's gone on into the decision making around a particular recommended discipline. John, you want to comment, or any other staff or board members?
I think the way 50A improves the ability the public has to demand accountability from the police department is because with knowledge, the public can demand that elected officials appoint commissioners who treat police misconduct the way the public wants it. And right now, that's not, or until a month ago, that was not possible because police misconduct records were kept secret. Now, it'll be easy for people to evaluate, or easier for people to evaluate, how the police commissioner is treating substantiated allegations of police misconduct, and can hold the elected officials who appoint that police commissioner accountable for the police commissioner's decisions.
Thank you, John. Any other comments from members of the board? Questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Logan. Yahira.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Logan. Thank you so much for coming out. It's nice to hear from you. So next week,
Hear from you, Mr. Logan.
John Sonda.
Yes. If you have evidence that the executive director's actions violated the CCRB's charter, who should I contact and provide said evidence in order for a proper investigation to be conducted?
You should refer those matters to the Department of Investigation.
Do you have any recommendations, Fred Davey?
I think Mr. Darsh is aware of what I'm assuming the city charter and regs require, and that if the Department of Investigations is a place for that to go, then that's where they should go.
Okay. In terms of if a person's complaint is not investigated since it doesn't meet the criteria of CCRB, and the person files a written request for a reopen or reconsideration, the executive director, either Fred Davey or a panel can conduct and decide if it can be reopened. Have you personally, Fred Davey, been assigned a case where it was not meet the criteria of the CCRB's criteria and then reopen the case?
I'm not sure I understand your question, but I will say just in general, I don't anticipate that I've ever received a panel or a case that did not follow appropriate procedure.
Mr. Darsh, when you receive a reconsideration or a reopen request, written request, have you conducted any of those inquiries, or have you handed off any of those to a panel or to Mr. Davey himself?
John, I think that one was for you. And looks like you're frozen, unless I'm frozen. No, John, did you hear the question? I think you're muted, John.
Honda should refer the matter to the Department of Investigation, Fred. I understand he is upset with the
that wasn't my question.
But that is my answer.
All right. Okay, so I think it sounds like you should refer all these matters to DOI and let them sort them out. All right, Yahira, do we have another? Let me just see if board members have comments or questions. All right, Yahira, any?
Yes, we have Lizzie Alvarado Ford. Next.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Looks like, okay, great. Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. My question is, I was looking at the data that you recently released on the cases that you looked at in 2019, and I was surprised, or dismayed rather, by the fact that 58% were truncated, and it says usually because the complainant could not be reached. And I'm wondering why the phone call interview or the in-person interview following the complaint is necessary rather than optional. Why isn't the written report that a citizen submits over the CCRB's website over the phone enough? It just seems like another barrier to entry for people and likely contributes to the number of truncated cases, which is in the thousands consistently. Thank you.
John, you want to respond?
So I think that's a valid criticism of the agency's practices. I think one of the things that we have done in recent times is had a Blake Fellow who's been studying how the agency handles complaints and has been making recommendations to the agency on how we can improve reaching civilians so that fewer cases truncate, but also the changes that the agency has made to operations to cope with the pandemic have resulted in changes to the truncation rate. And I think some of those changes in practices may continue because of the change that we've seen to the truncation rate.
Thank you, John. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Speaker.
Sorry, I'm just following up
Go
right
ahead.
there.
Sure.
I was hoping, John, could you make a little bit more clear to me which changes you're referring to? Thanks for answering my question.
One of the things we used to do is require people to come down to 100 Church Street or to go to one of our community partners who are part of the Community Partners Initiative, city council people who have allowed us to open their offices and have our investigators meet with civilians in their offices, but it's still very difficult for people to find the time to do those things. And by allowing people to connect with investigators on the telephone, it makes things more effective.
Thank you, John. Other comments, questions? All right, we'll go to our next speaker, Yahira.
Thanks, Fred. Thank you so much, Lizzie. We have concluded the public session. I don't see any other hand raised.
Great. Thank you. And again, thanks to the public for coming out, for being willing to participate in this discussion, and to the public officials and others who've come out tonight as well to be a part of our conversation and our meeting. Let me see, I think I'm at the point of old business. Is there any old business to come before the board? Is there any new business to come before the board? All right, I'm going to see if we can have a motion to adjourn to executive session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning to executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Please say aye or raise your hand. All right. Sounds like we have a motion and seconded that has passed to adjourn to executive session. So we'll thank the public again, thank the staff for all their hard work, thank our board members for their dedication and commitment to this agency and its mission, and we'll adjourn to a conversation in executive session. And thanks again to the public for coming.